Miss Kim, the proposal design is complete for Steven's project. You can take a look. The lady in pink and white elegant outfit, synced in the CEO's chair, raised her eyes up. A small smile stretched her soft pink lips as she grabbed on the file from the tall man standing across the table with his signature poker face. Both of them were nearly same age, in late 20s. The lady scanned the pages, nodding her head in approval. She closed the file before tossing it on the table. She raised her head again, meeting that cold, impassive but breathtakingly beautiful face of her secretary towering across her with arms held together in regard. White office shirt hugging him closely, his gray coat abandoned somewhere in his cabin, sharp facial features and that permanent frown on his forehead creating a picture of his seriousness. Perfect and beautiful. With a sigh she shook her head at his indifferent expressions. Smiling a little won't hurt Jungkook. It won't make you any less handsome, she commented, her voice as teasing as always, another failed attempt to melt this man who had been her crush since he crashed in her office for interview. What killed her even more about him was his awesome business skills that made him a rare talent in his job. His expression still didn't falter, those sharp features contorted with icy appearance that mirrored the cold weather outside. Any changes required in the proposal, Miss Kim? He asked, his tone clipped and professional as ever and his voice deep and husky. Yn bite her lip over the tingle she felt in her chest on his voice. It was always like that. He doesn't talk a lot and that made her only yearn to hear more of his voice. This man, this beautiful and hysterically attractive piece of godly art had stolen her heart at very first sight. She landed on him. And now all her efforts were focused on getting him. The number of times she had tried to approach him were countless, and every time only response was rejection. Sadly, though it always intrigued her why. Because he never clearly replied her the reason of his rejection. Miss Kim, she stirred when his voice came again, snapping her out of that hopelessly romantic trance, and she found out that she was staring at him with an idiotic grin on her face. No, there are no changes needed. It is perfect just like you, she commented flirtatiously as she would always try on him, but still no response from him. Her lips pursed into pout on his impassive response as he bent a little to grab the file in front of her. Giving a usual curt nod, his words remained devoid of any emotion he could possibly carry when he replied. All right then, I'll forward the first copy today for a review and arrange a meeting with their staff in coming week. He recited, sophisticated and charming as hell. Yn was staring at him, with her face cradling on her palm and elbow resting on the table. She could hear him talking all day, sitting like this just looking at him being so alluringly good looking. The idiotic grin and hearts in her eyes made him clear his throat to gain her attention back. Do you need anything else, Miss Kim? He asked, stressing on his words, a silent warning for her to behave. The cheeky smile on her face turned into a flirty grin as she seductively clasped her hand together with elbows on table. Yes, she whispered erotically. You, she finished, and Jungkook closed his eyes with a sigh. There was still no impression on his face to her than annoyed and done. He was always like that, draining her cute adorable attempts to flirt with him. She was no less than a queen herself, and there was a long list of accomplished young guys ready to die for her. But damn this heart, no one ever tripped it the way this heartbreakingly beautiful man did. But unfortunately he was not the part of list of those guys. I'll take my leave, Miss Kim, he concluded blankly, and when he turned back to walk away, she quickly called him from behind. Wait, she quickened, leaping out her chair disoriented, and nearly jumped in front of him, putting a halting arm in his way. He stalled on his steps, and despite having the idea what was coming for him, he remained stoic with a mild frown, shifting between her face and her arm. She stood squarely in his way, crossing her arms on her chest. She again pouted with a frown, feigning her anger. Why are you always like this? How many times are you going to reject my confession? She asked, her tone sulky. Jungkook closed his eyes, taking in a deep sigh. God, he even looked gorgeous this way too. Adorably annoyed. I have told you so many times, Miss Kim, we are not good for each other. He replied, the same old repeated answer that she had heard 100 times or even more. And once again he was about to walk past her after rejecting her once more. But not this time. Her nostrils frilled, frown turning to a scowl as she closed the door shut before he could pass through it, and once again blocked his way, facing him with raged face. What the hell you think of yourself, huh? She nearly gritted her teeth, heckled by his constant torture. I am not just a random girl. Just because I like you, I care about you, doesn't mean you can insult me this way. This was getting heated up. Jungkook's blank face shifted slightly on her serious behavior. She was cheerful, bright girl and wonderfully hardworking businesswoman too. Each and every single employee of the office was her fan, be it girls or boys, and it was one of the reasons everyone worked earnestly under her leadership. It was rare to see her angry, seriously angry to be exact. Taking in another breath, Jungkook held his hands in defense and his voice calm and calculating when he said, I am not insulting you, Miss Kim. I am just stating facts. He replied as smooth as ever. But the slight softness that occurred in his tone didn't go unnoticed by her, melting her effortlessly at once. Wait, no, you are angry, Yn. Crossing her arms on her chest, she took a step closer to him, her chin up towards him and eyes narrowed, making her more cute than angry. Give me a reason, tell me where the problem is. Don't just simply walk away like a bastard. At least show me some respect. I can't figure out what I lack. I have been trying to approach you again and again, ditching my self-respect and dignity, and you just treat me like trash. What possible explanation do you have for this fucking rude behavior? She nearly yelled through clenched jaw, hoping that such a tough speech might push him to a conclusion. She had enough. Enough of his ignorance, enough of his coldness. Just because he was so overly handsome and had her heart, doesn't explain that he could do this to her. There should be at least a reasonable explanation for trampling her dignity like this. I don't like businesswoman, he replied, stern and clipped, and Yn paused at her place. He didn't waited for her another reaction, pressing his strong hand on the door handle and pulled it with his huge built arms, stumbling her aside with impact. Yn stood struck. He didn't wanted her because she was businesswoman. But what's wrong with that? She had never used her position for any illegal means, neither she was ever involved in any immoral activity. He had known her long enough to understand what sort of girl she was. Cold fucking jerk, I hate you, she yelled at the shut door where he just left. Why on the earth she had to be stuck with this man who doesn't even worth her? Arg, she groaned loudly, running a hand in her half-part long straight hair. Then something clicked her mind. A devil smile spreading on her lips for another attempt to smooch that man she fell for. Run however you want, baby boy, you are mine anyways. She crooned to herself, taking her drill towards the chair and began to type something on the laptop. Good morning, Miss Kim. He entered her office after a knock and she didn't reply him. But he didn't notice or just ignored. Asshole, she cursed him, trying her best to keep her eyes on the laptop and ignore the irresistible presence of his. He slid a file on the table and his indifferent voice came as formal as ever. The project report, Miss Kim. It needs your signature. Still no response. She kept on rapping on the keyboard without even looking at him, though it was hardest task on earth. From the corner of her eyes she could notice that he was wearing blue suit today and every cell of her body tempted her to raise those eyes and stick them on the beautiful bastard. But she held back, and resultantly his voice came a little calm and deceptively soft. I am so sorry. 𝙢𝙪𝙨 bite her lip, struggling against the erupting smile on her face, but it didn't work. Next moment she was smiling cheekily at him. He sighed one more time, closing his eyes and his face still devoid of any expression. Just a little sorry. It was 58th time you rejected me. At least you could buy something for me to show some sincerity. She muttered, her cheeks fluffing with sulk, but he just stood there carrying that blank handsome face on the huge broad body. She picked the file up, and pulling an envelope from her drawer she extended it towards him. Can you please pass it to HR department and ask them to implement it as soon as possible? He took it casually, but as soon as he turned the envelope over, he snapped his head up at her. 𝙢𝙪 sat in her chair pretending to be calm and focused on the file despite the fluttering in her chest, waiting for his reaction. As expected he spoke with a deep breath, forcing himself to be reasonably professional. Your resignation letter, Miss Kim. Despite his composed demeanor, she could feel disbelief and frustration brewing beside. Oh man, how adorable he looked, trying not to appear surprised and definitely annoyed. She ate back a chuckle and urged to break at him that it was all his fault. Clearing her throat, she placed the file in her hands down and raised her head towards him. Yes, you said you don't like businesswomen, so I am resigning from here. She replied nonchalantly, with soft smile on her face, but the gleam dancing in her eyes gave her away. So what do you prefer in woman? Except a cleaner, please. It is a little. Have you lost your mind, Kim 𝙢𝙪? He cut her off loudly, making her flinch a little in her chair as well as gulp down at her full name. It was for the first time she saw him losing his composure. His face hardened and he smashed the envelope on the table. Do you have any brains or not? Can you stop being childish and act your age a little? Though she was clearly intimidated by his sudden unusual side, but it was a chance. He was triggered, and if she pushed him a little maybe he could reveal the reason behind his despise for businesswomen. So collecting herself she rose from her seat and putting her heartfelt instincts to admire his burning dominating side aside, she yelled back at him. Stop shouting at me. What else you expect me to do? He shouted back instead, taking her off guards further. I told you 100 times to stop all this. Stop this meaningless pursuit. You won't get anything. And now look at what you are going to do. Ruining your career for fucking timely infatuation. Jungkook was a man of composure and he had held himself gracefully at even toughest situations with her, but now she saw his whole body tensed and all of it didn't make sense. Maybe it was not just about business. There was something more, something deeper that he didn't want it to open up. But she was Kim 𝙢𝙪, stubborn and utterly tenacious. Stop right there, she warned, pointing at him, her tone stern and her eyes stoic. Stop right there, Jungkook. You have no right to ridicule my feelings, okay? How can you be so crude? What basis are you judging me and my feelings? Can you be more asshole? Just because a woman is following you around, seeking for your attention because she loves you, citing her dignity and self-respect, doesn't mean you can ridicule her like this. You just keep on ignoring me, rejecting me. Be a man, open up and at least put ahead a reasonable explanation for this fucking damn behavior of yours. She said it whole, the things she had always kept inside. That she always wanted to ask him, and she noticed there was instantaneous shift in his expressions when he closed his eyes, running a messy hand in his perfectly placed hair. Listen, Ms. Kim, here we are again. One more count of rejection. He was always like that. Covering his explanations behind his professionalism. Holding his hands up in defense he added. This won't work. Please try to understand. I don't want any relationship. Then tell me that you don't want a relationship. Why the hell are you insulting my emotions and feelings? She cut him off rather angrily, her voice rising few octaves and her voice trembled with deeper sense of hurt. She hated this feeling the most, vulnerable and breaking, but what he just said about the genuine emotions she held for him, it really cut her like a twisted knife. A transparent gloss descended down in her eyes, forcing her to turn back from him to hide it. She was an embodiment of life and energy, and never allowed anyone or anything around sadden her, neither had she let anyone around her get sad by anything. That's why everyone treated her like a queen. She exhaled shakily, tipping her head up to restrain those tears from breaking through the confines of her eyes. And when she tried to speak, her voice cracked helplessly. Fine, you don't want it, I take it, but at least give me genuine proper reason. Don't treat me like that, Jungkook. I adore you, I care about you, and it has nothing to do with you loving me back. But don't make me feel so worthless that you don't even bother explaining it to me. She sniffed, her head slumping down and her back facing him. She didn't know what he was thinking, how he might be looking at her. Maybe retaining that blank emotionless face of his, considering it her childish drama. Isn't it what he always do? It was just foolish of her to think that he might be able to perceive any of her feelings someday if she persisted. But it was not a business deal, neither some argument that she can win with her unruly tactics. It was about a man. A painfully attractive man who never gave a fuck about her. Who probably never even regarded her more than a troublemaker. And why was she even crying? It was not like it was something new. Hasn't he refused her hundreds of times? She should have listened to him. She should have backed off. A sudden wave of different emotions overwhelmed her, like a dam that she was holding over his every rejection with a block of hope that one day, maybe one day he will give in to her pure love. But nothing. His cell phone rang, startling her a little. He probably picked up because when his voice came next, it was shocked and worried. What? He exclaimed, and 𝙢𝙪 turned at once, forgetting all the complaints and anger she held for him a minute ago. He was tensed, his brows narrowed more than usual, and it helplessly worried her. Too, as everything about him affected her always. His lips pressed in thin grim line and he inhaled through nose, closing his eyes momentarily. Okay, I'll be there. Please handle it till then. He hung up and when he was about to turn around she called him, setting aside all the fights and arguments. Is everything alright? It was soft as usual. Will she be ever able to teach this man a lesson he deserved? Looking at her present condition and the weakness she had in his part only proved that she was hopelessly into him. And that would only make all her efforts to stay mad him any longer unsuccessful. He turned a little to look at her and with a thoughtful pause, he spoke, his voice low but calm. You wanted to know why I don't want any relationship, right? Come with me, I'll show you. He trailed off, walking ahead and disappeared through the door. YN frowned but it was not the time to think. Quickly grabbing on her purse, she didn't even took her coat and ran after him. He mattered the most, he always did, she always foolishly put him ahead of her and ahead of everything. They reached in the parking and this time he himself opened the passenger seat for her. Otherwise, he would always force her to sit in backseat and insist on being professional. Glancing at him once, she got in and Jungkook walked around to get into the driver's seat and the car rolled on. The drive was silent, well he was always silent but she was usually talking non-stop. The ride ended up, when car came to a halt in front of a school. YN frowned, there was no possibility in her mind that could justify their presence at this place. He got off and so did she, following him behind. They got in, passing through the corridor he led her to an office room. Judging from his perfect sense of directions, she could conclude that he had been here a lot of time. But why? The answer didn't took too long to get revealed on her. They got in the office room where two little girls probably 5 at age, and a couple in late 20s stood. Across the table was a middle-aged man who was principal guessing from the title plate on the table. Good afternoon, Mr. Young, Jungkook greeted, in his signature straight tone and one of the girls timidly walked toward him with head low and fidgeting fingers. The crease in YN's brows deepened. Can't be he is. Her heart seemed to sink down to her stomach, millions of thoughts crashing in her mind in a second, leaving her messed up. The principal, Mr. Young, looked at her and then at Jungkook one by one and then towards the other couple. What he said next, snatched the ground off YN's feet. He is girl's father. YN froze from head to toe. He was married, even had a girl. Fucking asshole. He was playing with her all the times. But wait, then why her mother wasn't here? Something was wrong. She looked at the girl who was already staring at her with a weird impression that only made her melt for this little innocent soul. Whatever it was, she was not to blame. Then Mr. Young turned towards them. Mr. Jaeon, Yuna fought with this girl and even tore her notebook and chopped her hair. Mr. Young trailed off and YN looked at Jungkook glaring at the little girl, whose name was probably Yuna. Jaeon Yuna, kid quickly lowered her eyes under the sharp scrutiny of her father. This man seriously, he won't even refrain from intimidating a child. YN nudged him, giving a scowl to stop glaring at little girl. She stepped ahead, kneeling in front of her, YN tucked few strands of hair behind her ear tenderly. But before she could ask Yuna anything, the mother of other kids spoke up with clenched jaw. You seriously need to teach your daughter a little bit etiquettes and morals. Look at how wild she is. YN raised her head up towards her, and she could see how pissed she was. I really apologize madam. Jungkook intruded, his tone low and guilty and it unknowingly ignite a fire in YN. Her favorite man was apologizing. Not happening, but he added in same low persuasive tone. She won't do such thing again. And she will apologize to you and your daughter as well. Yuna, apologize too. Wait a minute. YN cut him off only to earn a glare from Jungkook but she couldn't care less as she added. I need to hear from Yuna what she need to apologize for. Cupping Yuna's cheek softly, she tipped her slumped head up to meet her eyes. Yuna, you know it is so wrong to attack your friends. Tell me what happened, why you did that, she asked softly but before Yuna could collect some words the man who was probably other girl's father broke in. What is left to ask? Can't you see what she had done? If teachers hadn't stopped them on time, it might have been worse. He sneered, and YN felt Yuna's small hands clutching her wrist that was on her cheek. YN gave her a reassuring smile before shooting her blooded eyes towards the couple. I am talking to my daughter. She must have a reason to do this. She defended sternly, without caring about the new relation she was making in reaction of Jungkook over all this. She could feel he was glaring at her maybe with a mix of shock and surprise but she can't take those words back. And she maybe meant them too. Then again she turned to Yuna and her stern voice became all soft when she asked. Sweetheart, what happened? You know it is so bad to attack your friend. Why would you do that? Yuna raised her eyes at her and she couldn't have melted for Jungkook as much as she did for this devilish angel. She bullied me first, mommy. YN bite her lip. Her eyes widened, pressing her lips to refrain from smiling. She was exactly like her. Wild and careless, playing with the situation. But her father was not like that. Calm composed man's wild daughter. Awesome. A giggle threatened to break from YN's mouth but she stifled it as Yuna continued in low wary voice momentarily glancing at her father. She said I won't grow into a beautiful lady because I don't have beautiful mommy. And she even snatched my lunchbox and told me girls without mother do not deserve good meal. She said all, like she was waiting to say everything out and YN's delicate heart sank. As well as her anguish flared making her clench her jaw tightly. She didn't knew where mother and so-called wife of her favorite man was and she would see him later for this. Right now there was a different matter in front of her to settle. Getting up from kneeling position, she turned towards the little girl who was clinging to her mother's legs and peeking aside. Bending near her, YN gave her a sweet smile too and then spoke up rather explanatory way. You did that, sweet angel, she asked and the girl's eyes fell low and she just nodded under the effect of softness in YN's tone. See it is a bad thing to say such things to your friends okay? She has a mother, I am her mother. And I am beautiful aren't I? She trailed off politely, tucking her own hairs back a little sassily when she said the last sentence. The little girl nodded with a hesitant smile and YN caressed her head. So you see, Yuna will grow up into a very beautiful lady like me because I will take care of her well. YN rose up straight, the room was silent at the way she dealt with everything. Even Jungkook couldn't intrude with anything. Looking at the couple, YN flipped her hair back dramatically before adding in a whisper to not scare their girl. My daughter didn't do anything so she won't apologize. Teach the kid better morals and better behavior because I taught my daughter to not take any intimidation. The lady rolled her eyes and all of them scurried away from the office. YN turned to the principal who was regarding her with calculating eyes. I really apologize for this mess, Mr. Young. How about this? For the compensation I'll sign a grant of $100,000 to this school. Mr. Young lit up. YN exchanged a glance with Jungkook, who as usual was glaring at her. Rolling her eyes a little at him, she slid her card on the table and held Yuna's hand. Mr. Young looked at the card and his wide eyes met her with mix of surprise and regard. And can I take my daughter with me today, please? I hope you won't mind. No, not at all, Mrs. Jaeon. Helper will get Yuna's belongings. YN's stomach twisted inside with the title. Mrs. Jaeon, how sweet and deserving. Walking out, Yuna went to take her stuff with the helper and Jungkook held her arm tightly, dragging her to the end of the corridor. What the hell is this, YN? What do you think you are doing? He hissed, thrashing her against the wall, his brows knitted together and his jaw tight with frustration. YN scowled at him, yanking his hand off her arm. She stood straight. I should be the one asking you. What the hell is this, Jungkook? You are married, even have an adorable cute daughter. Then why the fuck have you been hiding such a big thing? She rapped, trying to keep her voice low, and Jungkook's face eased, his frown loosening to normal. He took a pause and it felt like eternity to her. Her heart was squeezing tightly inside despite the calm, composed appearance she presented. And her mind was reeling with a pace that felt it will blow out. It was really time to let him go. But she needed to hear it from him. Why he was silent, every passing second was only raising her agony and restlessness. She couldn't do anything about it now. She had already accepted whatever would be coming for her. After what could set a decade for her, Jungkook took in a sigh and his voice came very quiet when he said. She divorced me, thank God. YN exhaled with relief like a huge stone was off her chest. But very soon she realized her words when his impassive eyes regarded her weirdly. She gave him an awkward grin and added, I felt so bad for you. She tried to sound serious but the giggle in her voice totally betrayed her and the smile she was fighting constantly erupted on her lips helplessly. She laughed a little and between her giggles she clasped her hand to her mouth because this wasn't what she was supposed to react. But actually she didn't felt bad. She felt happy and relieved. She was damn relieved. It was like getting him back after nearly losing him. See, I was hella scared. So don't blame me, it is just so relieving. Okay, that was really rude to say YN, but she was just being honest. Jungkook shook his head, stepping back from her when he saw Yuna skipping in the corridor. He walked towards her, but to his surprise, she ran past him, quickly hugging YN's legs. He twisted back on his heels only find her mingling with this crazy woman she just accepted as her mother. What the hell was he going to do with her? In fact, with both of them. Poking his cheek, took her stuff from the helper and walked back toward the two ladies being lovey-dovey. He paused for moments. YN was blooping Yuna's nose and Yuna giggled in response. It won't be a lie to say that YN had made Yuna smile more than he had ever done. Well, she was this sort of person. Bright and angelic, spreading happiness wherever she was. It was always hard to not find her adorable, but he just found himself unworthy of her. His messy life was another world that was far from her. And he didn't want the darkness of his stormy story crash into her peaceful charming life. 2. As soon as they got into the car, Yuna insisted on siding with YN, so both of them took the back seat. Jungkook occupied the driver's seat and when he was settled, he shifted in his to face the little girl. What was all this, Yuna? He nearly scolded her and YN's brows deepened while Yuna's head slumped. Is this what I am teaching you? Bullying you mates and assaulting them? I am so disappointed in you. Yuna quickly curled up into YN's lap, hiding herself and YN wrapped her arms around her like a protective mother's shield. Jungkook again paused there. It was getting out of his hands now. And he needed to handle this as soon as possible. Because he didn't want the history to be repeated. Even if YN was not such kind of person, still she wasn't responsible for his messed up life. He met the scowl of YN, her eyes sharply glaring at him and her voice came strict and scolding when she hissed back. What is wrong with you? Is there any person you don't try to intimidate? She retorted, caressing head of snuggled girl in her lap. Jungkook went silent for a second. Was he really being too much? He knew that fighting with her won't help, but also he needed to discuss things with her separately. Mommy, he even scolded me when I insist on going for amusement park. The little soft muffled voice came as Yuna slightly tilted her head up. YN's lips parted in a dramatic disbelief and Jungkook sighed, shaking his head. As if one was not enough that he got a bonus in form of her. He straightened in his seat because he was aware that he won't be able to win over two of them. You are such a dumbass, Jungkook. Take us to amusement park right now. Don't use such words in front of her. He snapped, looking at the back view mirror, but YN rolled her eyes at him. When was he ever able to intimidate her? He had closed his heart long before, when Yuna's responsibility fell on his shoulders and he had never thought about anyone after that. But this woman was tearing him off persistently, exposing him to the heart that he had pressed in tightly. It was confusing him, messing him every day. The way she would smile at him, gaze at him and treat him like he was a treasure. And when he thought she will change her attitude after she will see Yuna, she turned out to be totally different. But should he drag her into his mess? Mommy, you are so pretty, really. They were giggling with each other on the backseat. YN was showing her something on phone and when Yuna complimented her, she again rubbed her nose. So are you, she complimented back, pinching her cheek softly. Both of them were slouched at her phone and from the way of swiping she was probably showing her pictures and Yuna was constantly smiling and glowing in her company. They are my mom and dad. Yuna, when you will meet them call them grandma and grandpa, okay? She chirped and Yuna nodded vigorously. Something stirred in Jungkook. She was taking her in, involving her family, and that shouldn't happen. How he was going to handle Yuna after her? Looking in the back view mirror, he tried to speak again but this time calmly. Miss Kim, let me drop you to office first, I'll take her to amusement park later. He suggested, and YN raised her head towards him with a frowned face. How does he tell her that he didn't wanted his girl to get accustomed to her bright or that he had been trying to resist himself? YN passed her phone to Yuna, and her arms again crossed on her chest. And why would you do so? You need to see the office. I am the boss, and I'm telling you to take me to amusement park too. Don't try to play smart. She retorted, leaving no room to discuss. Jungkook sighed in defeat. How was he supposed to handle this woman? He was sure that once she will get to know that with him, are coming responsibilities to bear, she will back off. When Yuna's own mother left her, because she prioritized her career over responsibility, then how another woman can take her in? She was just being reckless because of the attraction she might have felt for him. The car stopped in front of the huge amusement park and Yuna nearly bounced off in her seat out of excitement. Whoa, you are the best mommy, I love you much. She thrilled, tightly wrapping her arms around Yn, who giggled back at her. Jungkook couldn't help but look at them with longing and confusion. He had dreamed of such family for Yuna with her mother, but it couldn't happen. Getting off, both ladies ran, skipping towards inside, and he just followed them back with his hands in pockets. They ran to the rides, one after other, and both beaming with each other out of pure glee. It was so heartwarming, but temporary as well. Yn left her on the ride and walked towards him, panting badly and a cheeky smile pasted on her blooming face. You are such a bore, Dad. Jungkook. Why don't you join her? She said, still panting and steadying her breath. Jungkook uncapped the juice can he brought for them and extended it towards her. With a little thank you, she took it and gulped down the sweet nectar, offering a respite to her heaving breath. He tossed his coat on her shoulders when he noticed that she was not wearing hers and gestured her towards the bench and followed her until both of them settled beside each other and their eyes fixed on the jumping girl ahead. Never thought you could have such cute daughter as well. And she looks just like you, seriously. She commented, her tone full of admiration and soft like a mother. Jungkook turned his face to look at her, as impassive as ever. And that's why I never wanted to get into any relationship. I won't be able to manage it. He replied, low but firm as any father would do. Yn looked at him. He really cared about Yuna, she could see, but something had turned him cold and stoic. He might not express it a lot, but the way his face went pale when he got the phone call and the way he looked at her happy with glowing eyes. Any father would do. Her mother. Yn hesitated, unsure what to say. She left. He quickened, his jaw stiffening, and Yn didn't push in to let him take the freedom if he really wanted to share with her, but he continued, his tone still blank like he didn't felt bad anymore. We were college best friends, and something grew up between us that we named as love. And heightened with emotions in youth, we stick to each other and got married after out graduation. Both of us had already started a business during our college. A year later, we had Yuna. Responsibilities were increased, we were young, and business workload was even more. She couldn't handle a lot. Almost 8 months of Yuna's birth, she got an offer from international company. We were fresh graduates and it was her dream to carry her career. I could have waited for her back, but she said that she needed respite from our reckless decision. And we divorced. She left. He trailed off, even unstable, and his head slumped down. Yn's heart clenched. She had always felt for him, but what she felt at the moment was more than just adoration. She felt his pain, the mourn in his voice. 8 months, she whispered, her voice thick with emotions and horror, and her glossy eyes moved to little girl giggling on ball pool. You took care of her since then. Alone. How a woman can be so cruel. She added, her eyes threatening to spill out. Jungkook nodded with head down. Yuna was a grown-up good girl and he, a man alone taking care of her. A picture of him carrying a crying baby blinked across her mind. How much he would have put in, how much he would have struggled to bring up the little baby in all these years. Her insides warmed up, a wave of emotions left her unable to control her tears, and she felt a strong urge to hug him tightly. Hug him and tell him that he was great, not just good-looking, and not just manly, but a beautiful human being. And he had done great. Miss Kim, he called her, his brows scrunched and he was regarding her teary face with confusion. Yn wiped her face and turned to offer him a warm smile. You have done great, Jungkook. I am so proud of you. She whispered low and drenched, and her eyes were glowing with so much emotions. Now she had a totally different perspective of this man. A better one that made her love him even more. Miss Kim, actually his sentence got cut off when Yuna came running in their direction. Mommy, Daddy, come on, let's get ice cream. I want ice cream, she whined, holding Jungkook's arm and shook it vigorously. Yn chuckled helplessly, and getting up, she knelt in front of Yuna and held her arm softly. Mommy, ice cream, please, she again whined, and Yn suddenly hugged her tightly. Snuggling into her, she tightened the security like she never wanted to let her go. Mommy will get you ice cream. And everything. Mommy loves you so much, she whispered, still hugging her, and Jungkook felt his heart blow up. She was beyond his expectations. Maybe he was really wrong about her and her feelings. Maybe he could have a better judgment if his thoughts were not clouded with the trauma he had to suffer all alone. Yuna's sickness, her brought up, her education. He handled all that, and it really took a lot. He had put all of himself, and still he wasn't sure if he had done enough. And this woman now was making him hopeful. The promise that he took to not let Yuna into hands that can't carry her was shattering now. She pulled back, kissing Yuna's forehead. She softly pinched her cheek. Yuna love mommy too, Yuna chirped in her cute lovely voice, and cradlingYn's face she kissed her cheek, earning a giggle in return. Jungkook, heart melted smoothly. He had never seen Yuna so comfortable and happy with anyone, even not himself. Yn got up, offering her finger to Yuna to hold. She took her to the ice cream section, and Jungkook just simple got up and followed behind them. Having the dessert, Yuna slightly tipped hers and nicked it up to Yn's nose. She gasped with cold pinch, but next moment both broke into giggles, and Yuna ran ahead with Yn following her behind. At a little distance she caught her raising her up in the air, and both of them laughed hysterically. Once they were done, both ladies got tired, so he took them back. By the time they reached his apartment, Yuna was asleep in Yn's lap, and she had wrapped his coat around both of them. Here, he said, extending the coffee mug towards her, and Yn's eyes shifted from his small arranged living room towards his broad looming figure. He came after putting Yuna to bed. With a soft thank you she took the mug, and he settled on the other couch beside her. You lived here with her? Taking a sip she asked curiously. Jungkook sniffed a slight chuckle. Little lady was jealous probably. But he didn't want it to fuel her, so he shook his head. No, he denied, settling back into his couch, and he practically saw her sighing in relief. I wanted to give Yuna a new life. The company was closed, the house was sold, and I bought this apartment. We have been living here since then. 2 of us. And I think we are good. He trailed off, a little tired maybe. Yn's eyes were stuck on him as they always were. So many revelations for today. He had so many sides, so many depths, and she knew she won't hesitate diving in him if needed. Jungkook felt her gaze still stuck on him, so cleared his throat. Miss Kim, so now you know everything. I think you should marry me, Jungkook. She broke in and Jungkook felt his soul leaving his body. What the hell? He didn't expect it from her. What was she talking about? At first I just loved you, but now it is more than that. I want you to understand that you are very important to me and everything that is related to you is important to me. And Yuna, I want to give her what she had lacked. Everything that I have found she missed. And I want to make up for all the sleepless nights you might have spent in the quest of being a father. And, stop. Right, there, Kim Yn. He interrupted sternly, stressing on each word. This woman was beyond all his calculations. Something was wrong with her head maybe. His face was hardening and he felt his composure wavering over her persistent stubbornness. I have told you 100 times and I am telling you again. I don't afford a relationship. You were right, she continued as stubbornly as she was ever, placing down her cup. You can't afford a relationship. Yuna needs a mother, and that's why I want to marry you. I know you have done a lot for her and you have taken good care of her. But still there is space of motherly company in her. At first I only loved you but now I have one more to love. Look at her, she lacking the place of mother in herself, don't you see that? And how do you know you can fill that? He nearly growled, his tone hardened and his face stiffened with frustration and anger. How do you know you won't be fed up with her? How do you know you can take her responsibility? You are being reckless because to the fucking little attraction you feel towards me and once the reality of life will hit you, you will back off again. When her own mother couldn't keep with her then how do you claim you can take care of her forever? Shut up, Yn broke in loudly, making him zip up. Her voice trembled on the conviction he was putting on her and her eyes brimmed up again. This was third time in one day this man was making her cry. She felt the urge to smash the hot coffee cup on his beautiful ridiculous face. You always say such horrible things, don't you? How many times are you going to ridicule my emotions for you? That woman is not her mother. Just because she gave birth to her, doesn't mean she can claim her. She left an 8-month-old baby, do you think a mother would ever do that? Her tear flowed down and she chalked on her words as he continued. And you are comparing me with that horrible woman who couldn't understand what honor being a mother is. What love is, who couldn't treasure you, and you are punishing me, Yuna and yourself for her mistake. Yni, shut up, she snapped at him before another explanation could come from him adding to the list of rejections and she got up from her place. You are an asshole Jungkook. You cold jerk, you keep on insulting me, you keep on degrading me, and you keep on ridiculing me. If I had to run away from you I would have done that already. Not all the women are same. How can you put me in same measure as your fucking ex-wife? You have hurt me more than once. And you still keep on doing that just because you hate that woman to make you suffer and make Yuna suffer. But it is not affecting her at all. She would happy somewhere and you are still stuck there. You .1.big. Bastard, and I hate you. She snapped and her breath was heavy and her tears relentless. He was just listening to her, standing with head down as he always had. Now she seriously wanted to smash that coffee on this emotionless jerk. Why on the earth she had to fall for him? Grabbing on her purse and when she was about to leave his voice came from behind. Let me drop you Miss Kim. Go to hell, she snapped back, stomping outside. She understood his insecurities, his struggles to bring up a baby to this much. His trauma about trusting someone, but how was all that her fault? She just wanted him, and all his worries, all his pain. How was that selfish or foolish? Why he had to be heartless? And why he had to be in her heart at the same time? She left his house, getting in the car and drove away. He was standing in the door, carrying that blank straight face as he always did. When he turned on his heels he paused. Yuna was standing beside the staircase with her new bear Yn bought her. She was scowling at him that meant she heard their conversation. He took in a sigh. Another moody lady. Yuna, you woke up. You are an asshole daddy. I also hate you. She snapped at him making him wide his eyes on her using forbidden words. Before he could scold her or say something she stomped upstairs back leaving him all disoriented. What on the earth was he supposed to do? Was he really wrong to choose this for his daughter? Was he wrong about deciding to live his life for his daughter? The moments of both of them playing, laughing and giggling from today reeling in his mind. They were really happy today. And what he did, made her cry. He hated to make her cry because he wasn't used to it. She was not a person to give up and cry but she was sensitive in his matter. And things he said to her were maybe out of line but he just wanted her to back off. But then her words crossed him. Yuna needed a mother. She was right. He had seen her yearning and looking at the couples bringing her friends at school and despite all his efforts he couldn't fill it up. And she was growing, so they're definitely need of a mother who could accompany her, teach her and care about her. Yn hadn't gone to office since 3 days and that fucker had not even called her to apologize for that day though she got all the information from her receptionist that he had been coming to office regularly and handling work. And he even asked about her and how long she was going to avoid coming to office. But still he didn't call her. She was badly missing Yuna and wondering how she must be doing. There was a knock at the door and when she walked downstairs into the living room, her mother had already attended the door. But what she saw next had her pretty face lit up. Yuna was running towards her, shouting mommy and Yn knelt opening her arms wide as the little girl ran into her embrace. Mommy, I missed you so much. As soon as she pulled back, to meet her face with bright big smile, Yuna kissed her cheek making her smile even deeper. I missed you too my princess. She replied carrying her in her arms and walked to the living room where her father was sitting in the couch reading a book. When he raised his head a smile spread all over him and Yuna ran to him. Grandpa, she yelled, jumping on him and he took her in his arms quickly. So you are Yuna, you mommy has missed you like hell. Mr. Kim said, tickling her as Yuna giggled wiggling in his lap.Yn's face was lighting with smile when her father also called her with same title. She had long told her parents about Jungkook and when she met Yuna she detailed everything too. They had supported her every decision and motivated her and told her to take her time to solve things because she was old enough. They had never intruded in her matters. She missed her mommy like hell too. The familiar deep voice had her jerk her neck with a bright grin towards him carrying a bouquet of flowers but morphed back as soon she remembered their last argument. Scrunching her face, she ignored him and walked to sit on a couch. Jungkook sniffed a chuckle on how adorable she was and exchanged a glance with Mrs. Kim, beside him who simply shrugged. Chairman, he greeted the old man, who was busy with the little girl. He nodded back at him with a smile and then looked at his daughter sitting like she had not wrecked their ears talking about her favorite handsome man. She wrecked our ears talking about you, Jungkook. Mrs. Kim spoke up. Jungkook this, Jungkook that. He is handsome, he is. Mom please. She groaned, her ears clearly turning red and everyone giggled at her flustered face. Mrs. Kim walked towards the old man and the little girl and both of them played with her. He just kept on looking at them, laughing and giggling. Family, what he always intended to give Yoona. And these people had already embraced both of them. And now it was time for him to move on too. That was the reason he came here today. So does Yoona's mommy will accept Yoona's daddy's apology? He said, his voice as attractive as ever, but there was a tint of request and softness in that. YN bite her lip, still not facing him and stifling the smile that was threatening to fall out of her. Would she ever learn to resist this man? No, she asserted, trying to sound angry, but it didn't help. He made me cry and I hate him. She added, looking away from him, but Jungkook's face split into a helpless grin, exchanging a glance with her parents. Yoona left Mr. Kim's hand and walked around towards YN. Climbing up on the couch beside her, she held her hand into her small cute ones. Mommy, she called, her voice cute and heart-melting as ever. I scolded him for you. He promised he won't make you cry again and he is sorry. She spoke like an elder and a chuckle teared from YN's mouth before she could stifle it. Then she turned to her father and strictly pointed at him. Kooky, she called, taking everyone off guard, she ordered him. Apologize to mommy. Jungkook stepped ahead and extending the flowers towards her he uttered a sorry. YN bite lip, but their eyes widened once more when Yoona ordered him again. Ears, Kooky, hold your ears and do sit-ups. We rehearsed it at home. She whispered the last part in YN's ear and she smiled even widely. Jungkook sighed in defeat, transferring the bouquet to one hand he held his ear with other and kneeling down he uttered another sorry. YN heart bloomed up. He looked so adorable this way. Though she cared for him always, after knowing what he had suffered in years made her love him even more. Fine, she whispered, feigning her sulk she grabbed the flowers from his hand. I forgive you for sake of Yoona. She finished flicking Yoona's nose and she grinned widely at her. But Jungkook didn't got up, instead reaching his inner pocket he retrieved a small box. I know I am not perfect. He began and YN froze at her place as he continued, opening the box. I am not very ideal that every lady might dream of and I have been a jerk to you. But YN I am saying it with all my heart, I want to start a new life with you, and Yoona together like a family. You are a beautiful and most heartwarming person I have ever met in my life and I treasure you as much as I care for Yoona. I am not asking you this because Yoona needs a mother or I need a person to take care. But because I have finally accepted that I love you. Both of us, me and Yoona, love you. So, YN do you take both of us in? She was brimming up already. She had proposed to this guy countless times and got a refusal, but none of her confessions was as heartfelt as his. Yoona shook her arm vigorously and yelled with excitement. Mommy please, say yes. Please please please. YN chuckled through tears. When she exchanged a glance with her parents, they gave her a reassuring nod. Yes, she said, sliding the ring into her finger. He gave her a grateful smile. Yoona bounced up, in her lap and all of them clapped cheerfully. The family was going to be complete for both of them. She quickly hugged Yoona tightly, kissing her head, and Jungkook stood up gazing at two most important persons of her life being happy with each other. Jungkook walked into his room after seeing off the guests and wrapping the wedding arrangements, but when he found the room empty, he took his way towards Yoona's room. Slowly opening the door, as per his expectations, he found his lovely bride still in her wedding gown, patting the little sleeping girl. She placed her finger on her lips and signaled him to keep low and got up before following him out. She slept on the way here. She was tired, and it is her school tomorrow, so I tucked her in the bed. She explained, walking beside him, and he had held her hand into his protectively. The look he was giving her was one of gratefulness and love. Thank you YN, you have completed me, he said, giving a squeeze to her hand a little as they entered their room. He closed the door, but when he turned back to face her, she grabbed his tie and pushed him back against the door and his eyebrows rose with a surprise on her sudden change of mood. Her face was lighting with some devilish glint and she crooned in her seductive voice. Now baby boy, our business. Tonight you can't run anywhere and you are mine, she whispered near his face, her grip still firm on the knot of his tie. Jungkook shifted his eyes briefly on his tie and then back at her and a smile appeared on his face. With a jerk he carried her up, wrapping his both arms around her hips, and a gasp left her mouth with surprise. And who told you, I intend to run anywhere baby girl? He crooned back and YN's lips parted in awe. What's gotten into him suddenly? She had not seen this side of his till now. Walking ahead, he lied her down on the bed straight, her legs hanging down on side. He hovered over her, his palms digging on the mattress on the sides of her face, and YN gulped down as his heat raised her heart suddenly. And yes, I am all yours tonight, and every night and every day from today forever. He added, and YN felt her heart blowing up. This man had always had this effect on her and she had yearned for him and drooled over him and simped over him with tons of emotions. Pressing her palms on his chest, she gave a push, shifting their position to side, and now she was hovering over her. A chuckle of surprise left Jungkook's mouth. YN, good that you know it. And you have made me run after you enough. I am not letting you intimidate me again, she whispered breathlessly, and a smirk appeared on Jungkook's face. Snaking arms around her waist, he gave a gentle tug, crashing her to his body with a gasp. So wild Mrs. Jaeon, he whispered erotically, and all the follicles stood alert on YN's body as he added. I'll make sure to please you enough to make up all the turmoil. And his mouth found hers, pressing her head, and he claimed her passionately.